Global Times, 17 October 2022, China says the EU should work together on making NEVs instead of competing with them. China wants to make electric cars better than any other country, so it has been giving a lot of money to the business to help it grow. The Brussels-based environmental group Transport and Environment said in a report released on Monday that the sales of electric vehicles, EVs, in the EU had slowed down. According to Reuters, the EU needs to give its carmakers more regulatory incentives and anti-dumping laws from China so they can make more EVs or risk losing market share to Chinese competitors. The study can be seen as a small example of how worried the EU is that China will pass them. Even though China and the EU have strong economic links, many people in the EU still see China as a competitor. They have even stepped up their decoupling rhetoric against China to reduce dependence. Some EU officials and essential European countries, like Germany, have recently said they want good economic relations with China. This is concerning. Last week, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that decoupling from China would be wrong. Meanwhile, EU Trade Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis said that companies in the EU cannot decouple from China. Germany and China rely a lot on the export market because they are so connected to the rest of the world. When the world is about to go into a big slump, Germany is beating a dead horse by trying to be a significant supplier to China. At a time when the EU economy is dealing with problems like the war between Russia and Ukraine, an energy crisis, and high inflation, it is evident whether China and the EU should work together less or more on trade and economic issues. As an example, look at the auto industry. As long as European automakers keep investing in China, they are more intelligent than some European politicians who have wrong ideas about trade and economic ties with China. Last week, Volkswagen said it would spend €2.4 billion, $2.3 billion, to create a joint company with China's Horizon Robotics to make self-driving cars that will only be sold in China. BMW opened a new $2.2 billion plant in China in June. The factory's main job will be to make electric vehicles. Since 2000, China's general productivity has only increased by 3 times, but the labor cost has increased by 22 times. Volkswagen is putting money into a highly automated production plant in China to reduce this cost. The car company is putting the most money into it in China. In July, Audi started building an EV plant in China with the help of the state-owned car FAW Group. This was done better to meet the needs of the rapidly growing Chinese market. There is a lot of investment by European carmakers in China because the country is still the most significant car market globally and has a lot of room to grow. China sold 4.57 million new energy vehicles, NEVs, in the first 9 months of this year, 110% more than last year. Another reason more foreign automakers want to do business in China is the country's market opening reward. China removed limits on foreign ownership of NEVs and special use vehicles in 2018. In 2020 and 2021, commercial vehicles and passenger cars followed suit. At the same time, Chinese automakers are becoming more interested in the market because NEVs are becoming more popular in Europe. Reports say that between now and 2028, the German car rental business Sixt plans to buy more than 100,000 electric vehicles, EVs, from the Chinese automaker BYD for its European fleet. It's a race between NIO, SAIC, Geely, and Xpeng to enter the European market. European automakers are going to China, and Chinese automakers are going to Europe. This means that Chinese and European companies will have to work together more on NEVs and their supply chains, which is suitable for both sides' green transformation and long-term growth. What happened in the car industry is just one example of how people can work together to help each other. China and Europe's trade surpassed $800 billion for the first time in 2021. This shows that the two countries have much in common and can work together to achieve their shared strategy goals. There is disagreement between the two sides regarding ideas. Still, the main goal of the relationship should always be to work together, even when Europeans are critical of China. This is what China wants to happen. China hopes that opinions against China will lose to more of the EU's rational forces as long as they keep working together and talking to each other more, making it easier for businesses and people to work together on trade and economic issues. So, even though there have been setbacks, we are still sure that the China-EU Comprehensive Agreement on Investment will move forward. Having the EU as its primary market is, after all, good for China. When people in China think about industry, they want to keep the peace and give their people jobs, but when people in Europe think about it, they want to get a good return on their investment. There was no way that the show could have been successful, but liberals are trying to make it sound like a success to get people to watch this fake show. It will be too late for Australia to wait any longer. China does business this way, which is called sausage slicing.